coach and also the roundtable coordinator. And I am so thrilled about, with our presenter today, Landon Pitcher. And he's a graduate from Thunderbird. And what you always know with those graduate at Thunderbirds, they're strategic, creative, and diplomatic. So I've never been disappointed when we have anybody that has that kind of a background in sales. So we want to welcome Landon Pitcher. He is the CRO, the Chief Revenue Officer for Listo. And it's a perfect match here for the Global Chamber because they help in finding, hiring, and paying the global talent. So, with that said, Landon, welcome, welcome. And then share with us how you prepared for today. And we're here to listen to you and ask you questions.
Okay, perfect. That's great. I'm looking forward to the questions part because I'm not one that just likes to get up and start talking. And one of the points that I have in my outline in my notes is to use your personality in selling, use your background. And one of the things from my personal in my personality, I call myself a recovering accountant. So I like to say I sell with a spreadsheet, not with a PowerPoint. So I didn't put slides together. I would rather have it be more interactive and conversational. Anyway, Connie, if you want to start with some questions, feel free to do that, or I can tell you kind of the some of the outline that I've got and go right through it.
Well, so yes, love to have your outline. And so if we could just start with the question of what is your definition of selling?
Sure. Yeah, my definition of selling is it's the transfer of enthusiasm. And so there was a point in my career where I was selling something that I absolutely loved. It was actually consulting services, helping companies expand and hire overseas, set up their legal entities and their register their bank, get everything set up to start hiring in a different country. And we also had a software component at that company, but it wasn't great. We'd get companies on and then they would complain or there were issues all the time. And so it started to weigh heavily on me. And some salespeople seem to be able to just literally sell right through that. Not me. I think I have a little bit too much empathy for the clients, so I couldn't handle that. Anyway, there's a sales mentor or a guru that has a huge following, big podcast and newsletter and whatnot. And I decided on one of his podcasts, he said something like, hey, I'm always looking for new content. So send me any questions or anything you want me to write about or address. And so I direct messaged him on Instagram, actually. And I said, hey, listen, not all of us are selling the best in class product. I mean, there's just no way that we can be. You have this huge audience. A lot of us are, selling the bottom 50% in our segment. What do you recommend for us? And he doesn't know me, but he read right through it and he said, with some profanity actually, quit your job and go work somewhere that you are proud of what you sell and you believe fully in what you sell. And then following that, he said, people like you that sell something that they don't believe in are what gives salespeople a bad name. You're giving the rest of us a bad rap by selling something that you know is not the best thing for your customers. So to me, that goes right along with that. The definition of sales is transfer of enthusiasm. And so the first ingredient to doing sales is actually believing in what you are selling.
Well, kudos to you for being able to really embrace that particular advice. So, yes, and that is such a big deal. And
Yeah.
I think that what a lot of companies do, and boy, I'm a big believer in all that is hidden shall be revealed. And where if companies are not being 100% ethical in some way, that salespeople become hypersensitive because their reputation is tied to it.
For sure.
Yes, yes. And so, with any other audience here, thank you for joining us. Does anybody have a question to start off here with Landon before he jumps into his outline? Anyone? If you
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. Put them in the chat as we go. That works as well.
okay, so I'll monitor the chat here. So, okay, well, Landon, why don't you just go ahead with your outline and then please, we want to have your questions here. Oh, Andrea has a question before we start here.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Landon. My question is about a client that I have. It kind of mimics what you're saying, and I'm curious how you might approach this. That they do a wonderful product, and they really believe in service to their clients. However, inside the company, there's lots of distrust and wrangling and challenges. And I shared with my client, one of the people there said, if it isn't on the inside, it's going to show up on the outside, and it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
She is, and I tried to encourage the power that she had. What kind of, how can you influence this? But without being quite as clear as that person, like, hey, I have access actually to the CEO. And I'm wondering, how would you communicate that concept? Because they're losing clients and things are happening to them. And I think it's because they don't have the culture happening that mirrors the same values that they really do bring to their clients.
Okay. Interesting. And your question is the first point of my outline. So thank you for
You're
giving me
welcome.
a question that takes me right through, the couple of things I was going to say. But um, one of those pieces well, I'll tell a story actually, if that's okay with you, about like maybe it was one of my first sales jobs. And it was at Wells Fargo Bank. I got a job during undergrad as a teller. And you've probably heard of Wells Fargo and some of their, strong arm sales
Mhm.
tactics in the news over the last couple of years. Well, I started at Wells Fargo when they were just getting into this concept of the tellers being salespeople. A bank teller with a sales quota, that's crazy. You'd had like people that had been working there for 15, 20 years, and now all of a sudden they have a sales quota. The sweet old lady that, she's like, I've been at this town bank for 25 years and now I have to sell. Well, guess what? She was phenomenal. She was one of the best ones in that branch. And so I think part of the and to go on with that story, I developed a little bit of a reputation for being pretty decent at selling and was, top of the charts. And I'm in Utah. So in the state of Utah, I was one of the top people. And then I was transferred, I was promoted from teller to banker and business banker. And then I was transferred to a smaller branch um, for my school schedule, really. But anyway, one of the tellers, it was like my first day. He was like, "Hey, Landon, I can tell we're going to get along great, and our team's really excited to have you. But I just wanted to let you know that this branch we get really great customer service scores, but we don't get good sales. So like, just want to, I know you're Mr. Sales Guy in Utah, but like, just want to temper your expectations that we don't sell here very well. We don't have the volume to sell." And my response to him was, well, if you're getting phenomenal customer service scores, like you're gonna kill it. We'll do amazing. All we need to do is really just try. And so the reason I'm using this Wells Fargo example is to illustrate that all of us sell, anyone can sell, but it's just a matter of opening your mouth and doing it. So what we did was it was the month of March, and we did like a March Madness, just a competition. And I said to these tellers, all you need to do is get a person to come and meet me for the first time. Hey, come meet our personal banker, or we need to update your driver's license number in the system. Just any excuse that you can to come and get him in my office for a few minutes. Um, that will count as like game on. And so in this March Madness bracket, it was like Landon versus each teller in every single game. And they said, if I sell them something, and again, I'm using the word sell, if I sell them, it could just be online banking and getting their account created. It could be a debit card or a savings account or something like that. But if I sell them something that gets our team points, sales points, then I advance in the bracket. If I don't, then you advance in the bracket. And this was in 2008, so the prize was an iPod. So if you beat me, you get so many people in my chair, and I fail, well, at least you still get an iPod. But if you get them in my chair and like do close them, well, the good news for you is that you're going to hit your sales quota. And so it was like just this fun couple of weeks of people just finding reasons to get people in to meet with me. And bam, we became the top selling branch in Utah in a quarter, right away. And I give myself a little bit of credit, but I give the credit to these tellers who already had the reputation for great customer service, great customer, like when you have great customer service, you have huge opportunities because you have the empathy, you've got the service experience and clients that trust you. But I think the question that I'm hearing underlying from what you're saying, Andrea, is what about if there's like drama and chaos and everything internally? They're still managing to put on a face and deliver good service, but behind the scenes, there's dysfunction amongst the team. Um, and that is a little bit different to me. That's like I did have a client, but when she was in the buying process, she was an HR leader, and she said, everything that you've said and shown me is really good, but at that same company where I needed to leave, she said your Glassdoor reviews are really bad. And so I'm a believer as an HR person, that's going to translate into your company, and then that will translate into the delivery that we get as your client. And I hate to say, I don't know what I said, but it was like, yeah, well, Glassdoor, every company has bad reviews. I somehow was able to squeak through that, but she was totally right. And later, the software wasn't great for them, and just to keep my integrity intact. Once I got that advice from this mentor, I quit my job within the next week. I was gone. So, and part of the reason why I started the company I did with my current co-founders were both there, and I said we can do this so much better on our own, truly care for and love on our clients. Um, and and so anyway, does that help kind of answer the question, I hope, Andrea?
Well, what I'm pulling from that is, and it's something that I shared a bit of, was you already have the ability to create this with your clients. I mean, you already know how to create trust and connection and empathy. You already have that.
Yes.
All that needs to happen is to take that inside. So what kind of systems can you set up inside that translate what you already know how to do internally? And so that's where I was like, what is the message? I mean, I can say that. And at the same time, what is the message or the connection that needs to be made so they go, oh, that's a good idea.
Mm.
That's kind of what I'm looking at. Is there some kind of magic bullet or some way of communicating that so the message gets across?
Yeah, I
Because it's
would
a
think,
big deal. I mean, that would take some effort.
yeah. The silver bullet actually is in looking at churn or lost deals, in my opinion. Uh, my current co-founder, our CEO, was really masterful at being able to look at a deal that we lost or a client that we lost and translate that back into the company culture and show that we had a company culture based on fear. Therefore, we had these two people bickering about who is going to send the initial email to the client, and they debated about it for a day and a half, trying to get approval from someone to then give them permission to send the email to the client. And in 36 hours, the client who had sent an angry email didn't receive a response, which led to us losing $1 million a year customer, right? So it's not just, oh, the email wasn't sent in time. It was Kim doesn't feel enabled and empowered and trusted to send an email right away. So at the top level, there's a culture issue of trust that has to be broken down.
Mhm.
Um, that goes much deeper than the sales training, actually, in my opinion. So your question's phenomenal, and maybe even a little out of league for
No,
for the.
that's perfect. I love that because the churn is real, it's there, but what you're saying is pull it apart. Where does the connection get lost? Where's the gap in the connection with communication and empowerment and ability to take action and that that's really helpful because it brings in like the real dollars and cents and what's happening here. What is happening? Not just that it's happening. And that's very helpful.
Yeah, if you can monetize the cultural dysfunction and hey, we got 3 clients that we've lost in the last 6 months, and we lost this one, and you just translated up the chain to because this person wasn't trusted. We lost this one because there was, drama between with the last promotion, and we lost this one because of XYZ. You're gonna be able to make a lot better case, and that goes back to, again, my personality as a recovering accountant. Put the spreadsheet in front of them. It's not about the PowerPoint. It's like, give them the numbers and let those do the talking. Because for most of us and most business leaders, if you make it pretty clear, with from a number standpoint, that will typically do it. So
Well, thank you.
yeah, hope that helps.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was gonna say too, that the days of, I hope I can make the point clear in this presentation that all of us sell from literally the minute we're born. Everyone, like when we cry as a baby, we need something. Give me something. Help me. And the inverse is true as parents. When we're trying to get our kids to clean their room, do the job, take out the trash, we are selling. And I think that a lot of people, because they don't have the title of salesperson or they didn't pursue a career in sales, they maybe think like I'm not a salesperson, and they see the salespeople and they think that they're born with a specific gift or something. But frankly speaking, we're all selling in everything we do, every single day, as we try to accomplish our goals. And so there's no magic gimmick or tactic or hack, the spin technique. These days there's so much information out there before a company buys, that it's not, if I can save you $700 with 2 phone calls, are you gonna, it's like, those days have long passed us. So it's all about, again, just transferring that enthusiasm and that information, and asking the right questions. So any others that have come through the chat?
Nothing else. And
Yeah, Doc,
Landon,
I need, yeah.
thank you for just that we're in a whole different world as far as selling. And you just mentioned that people are doing research before they ever come to us, right? I mean, in a big way. So thank you. So all your questions are welcome. Put them in the chat, raise your hand, and our Landon will answer these. So Landon, why don't you go ahead with your outline and I'll keep a look on the chat.
Okay, perfect. So the first couple of items that I'd want to talk through are, what we've just chatted about. Everybody is a salesperson. Serve first and develop empathy. And that story I shared about Wells Fargo Bank, that all of us can do it, especially if we're serving first. My second point, my second bullet is transfer of enthusiasm. So believing in what you are selling, and don't kid yourself that you can find a hack or a gimmick or just the right thing to get someone to buy. My third thing is, and we talked about this, Connie, don't take rejection personally. So, in fact, any team that I've led from a sales standpoint, when they get a no, I typically say, celebrate it. Great. And sometimes I'll tell a prospect the second best answer is no. In fact, when people tell me no, I'll say that. Thanks for giving me the quick no. I'm a firm believer that the second best answer is no. And so, that we don't waste each other's time. So dequalifying the deal is oftentimes just as important as trying to pull and persuade them in. As you're trying to find out, why do you not fit for this? you're also going to find out, oh, here's why they do. So don't take it personal. And speaking of personal, I'm going to get a little bit personal here with Connie. One of the questions that she asked me, she said something about, well, Connie, tell me what it was that you heard about someone that said the sellers that what about Utah salespeople and the
Oh,
church culture here. Can you dare share that story? If
sure.
I ask you to share.
Okay. So a few years ago, I was prospecting a financial services company out of Utah. And I reached one of the VPs, who was a female. And so I work with people on overcoming sales call reluctance, which is that emotional hesitation to prospect. And so this VP, she said, Connie, we don't have that problem in Utah. And I said, why? What's going on? She says, we only hire former Mormon missionaries who have developed a resiliency, and that's not an issue with us. So here we are.
Yeah, she shared that with me, and I was like, oh, I happen to be one of those former Mormon missionaries. This painting behind me is Latvia. I lived in Lithuania and Latvia, and a lot of, well, a lot of Europe, but a lot of countries, people, their religion is their identity, right? So some 19-year-old kid coming up to you with a real thick accent trying to say, do you want to listen to, me tell you about my religion and see if it would work for you? A lot of people are like, no way. Like, get away from me as quick as possible. So the point that I agree with is 2 years of doing that, you develop what I would say is thick skin, and the ability to, again, appreciate a quick no, and you don't take it personal. And again, we identify with, our beliefs and our belief systems. So that is a rejection on the belief system could be technically, one of the most rejecting things you could ever say to somebody. But as you look and you recognize that everybody has their own reasons for why they're going to make a given decision, and I'm just going to move on and go find the next person that is a good fit. So yeah, I thought that story actually that you had heard, Connie, relates pretty well to this point of don't take rejection personally. Just be glad that they gave you a quicker no and move on to the next one. So
Well, and I'll just share with you, I was working with an organization that sold outpatient medical facilities for doctors. Instead of the doctor going to the hospital, they would go to an outpatient facility. And the star performer here in Arizona, when I interviewed him, he goes, Connie, I sold Bibles to get through college. And then he got his master's in public administration. And then I've had other people say, oh, we only hire people who have sold door to door. And so now that we're in a completely new environment where people are not selling Bibles door to door or this, so Landon, how do we develop that resiliency so we don't take it personal other than just experience like you're sharing?
ooh, great question, Connie. How do we develop that? To me, that is a muscle that you have to exercise, right? If so, I'm standing here before you saying, I've got this internal muscle. I don't take it personal. When I lose a deal, it still bothers me, right? And I still wonder, what did I do wrong? So it's never just going to completely go away. But as you get what we call in the sales world a bigger pipeline, it's easier to be rejected because I've got the next one. And as we develop more confidence in asking for business or cold calling or cold emailing or whatever it is, as we develop that confidence that we're going to get another appointment, I'm going to get another sales meeting, um, then again, you don't have to be so distraught and take it personal. So it's kind of like the old, like, stay in the gym every day. So that's 80% of it, is just continuing to do it, and you can handle the uh, the soreness, if you will. If you only go to the gym once a month, like, you're gonna be really sore after that gym experience once a month. But if you go a couple times a week, you're gonna be a lot better off. So
Yes, thank you. And Landon, I see we have Zach Selleck here, and he's a sales guy out of Chicago that has sold globally. And so, Zach, are you willing to add here a little more depth on helping salespeople develop that resiliency?
Yeah, but I'm not sure you're gonna like what I have to say. I'll tell you what, I know a lot of people, going back to the whole thing of selling door to door. If you've ever heard of Cutco knives, I know people who do really, really well in sales who did Cutco in college, right? And I actually last year I went to a trade show and I took with me a couple of young guys in their 20s who do telephone and email sales. And I essentially put them to work doing the equivalent of door-to-door selling, right? For 3 or 4 days. And they loved it. And they said it taught them more than they had learned in years selling on the phone. So I think the thing is putting yourself in that situation, figuring out a way to put yourself in that situation, working a trade show, anything like that, right? We are, you know, people who do sell have virtually zero fear of approaching somebody and starting a conversation and getting rejected. And normal people, that's one of their biggest fears, right? So you do have just trying to get past that, trying to figure out a way to exercise that, right? That is really, really useful because you are going to get rejected all the time, right? You're going to get rejected 8 out of 10 times you try and sell somebody something, and you got to, it's about picking yourself up and starting over again, right? So I think exercising that muscle is really important. There are no shortcuts to that, right? You can you can put yourself in an artificial situation, right? You can, if you have a friend who has a store, volunteer to work retail for a couple of days, right? If you can go to a trade show, do that, something like that, right? But you do have to have that, that's the way to exercise that muscle.
Thank you.
yeah.
Yes, the trade show. So thank you. Okay, any other questions? And then back to you, Landon. We've got one here. How do you deal with ghosting?
Yeah.
So
I
do you
love this
go
question.
ahead?
Yeah, I love it because well, for two reasons. I got done telling you guys that no hacks or gimmicks or whatever going to work, but I do have one that works reasonably well. But before I share that with you, the sales process and how you enter the sales conversation is going to determine, more than likely, are you going to get ghosted or not? So if you get on a sales call and you just talk the whole time, and you're doing all the talking and the presenting, again, this is kind of why PowerPoints for me are like, oh, I don't want to just like go through these slides. I want to have a conversation. I want to ask you questions. I want to hear what's on your mind. And I really need to know, why are you qualified to buy and what's the value of buying from me? And so that it's pretty clear and obvious in the sales conversation that our solution is going to make your life better and easier. And if we've correctly done that and qualified the deal, then your follow-up should elicit a response, right? Or you don't need to follow up because you've sold it so well that they are coming to you saying, hey, when can we start? Or what do you need next? That kind of thing. So um, again, asking those qualifying questions and getting really clear in the sales process so that you've quantified what the pain is going to be if they don't buy from you, is your first step to not being ghosted. But there are those situations, we're all in them. And I'm a firm believer that the follow-up muscle is just as important as the cold calling muscle. Follow-up requires organization, it requires time management, it requires so many other things. But it's really, really important. And it takes some creativity too. But first, you're going to want, in your first follow-up, it needs to be, when we talked, here were the next steps that we outlined. There are some sales call recording platforms with some AI that ingest the full sales conversation. They tell you how much the salesperson talked versus how much the buyer talked, and they want that buyer talking more. But one of the things that they flag is the two words next steps. And a good sales leader puts in labels for, did the sales rep finish the call with, these are the next steps? And if they don't, my brother's a sales leader, big software company, and he's had to let people go because they keep forgetting to get the next steps at the end of the call. So when you send your first email, it's going to be, here are the next steps we talked about. Now let's assume they don't reply and you're not getting anywhere. You're going back to, when we talked, we were fairly confident that your company's going to save $30,000 a month. Is there a reason that we're not starting this month? Right? Something like that, so that your follow-up is, what's changed between when we talked versus now when you're not replying to my email? So again, going back to, we're pretty clear, like you answered the questions. So what's next? And getting that clarification. I'll use the line that I said, the second best answer is no. So feel free to tell me no if this is not going to work for you. But you did say that we're going to be able to save you 50 grand a month. So what's changed? And that should allow them to either say no or, sorry, I've just been really, really busy. And then the hack that's worked for years is, in the subject line of your email, delete the former subject line, and in all caps say, Connie, have I lost you? With an exclamation point. Boom. Like, if they don't reply to that, close, lost your deal, and move on. I cannot tell you how many times that email gets like, hey, so sorry, yeah, I've been swamped, it's been the craziest month of my life. And then they're going to give you their objection, and we got a new CFO that has a friend that he wants to look at his platform first, something like that, right? But yeah, that have I lost you email is when I tell my team, like, okay, if you followed up 3 or 4 times already and you don't have anything, then send them the have I lost you, and then close lost the deal in your CRM. And if they write back, I would give another little hack too. When I do lose a deal, I have a line where I say, we treat feedback like diamonds at my company. And that's true. As a professional courtesy, given the time that we've spent, would you be willing to share with me what it was that made you go with a different direction?
Ah, that's golden.
Yeah, it works really well. It opens the door. It either opens the door back up or you get a good learning. And I can't tell you how many times someone says, it wasn't that you guys were bad. It was just, this one person, so I wasn't talking to the right decision maker in it, or something like that. And maybe next time we are going to use you guys. So we'll come back to you, next time we're looking at this solution. So,
Oh, I love that. Thank you. I love the next step also. Nima, would I can read your question, and I'm just go ahead and read. Nima, are you still with us? What strategies do you find most effective for building rapport with potential clients?
fun one. I'm a rapport person. I like, if a sales leader gives me a territory, I want West Coast. Don't give me East Coast. Because when I'm talking to someone in New York and they give me the whole, like, hey, just cut to the shit, man. Like, what do you want us? What are we gonna do here? I freeze. I panic. So I'm like, click, just hang up on me. So I'm a big person like you, Nika, like building some rapport, learning about them. It's amazing what you can derived just from Doug, is it your phone that's maybe needs to be muted? I'm
I
seeing.
went ahead and I muted him.
Perfect. It's amazing what you get from like where are you sitting and where are you from? Is that where you're from originally? And obviously don't be insincere about this, but if you've been there, compliment where they live. Find a reason to, oh, you're from Kansas. You guys have some incredible barbecue there. Or I've heard you have really great barbecue. I need to get down there at some point. That is an indirect compliment to them because they identify with Kansas, right? So, or Canada, wherever they're from, that you're starting to build rapport and just learning about where they grew up. And it may come out that, you know, they have family or those kinds of things, and they may ask you some questions as well. So looking for commonalities in your experience, in your interests, is or you know, showing that you're looking for them is also going to help build rapport. But then it's also important to be mindful that, you know, not everybody wants the rapport. You know, some people, again, certain I'll stereotype engineers, CFOs, some of them again are going to like, just get to the point. What are you going to be able to do for my team? I'm really busy. And so being mindful of that piece in getting straight to business sometimes, and then other times you do want to have a good warm up of, you know, 10 minutes of, hey, how was your kids' swim meet that you were on your way to last time we were talking? Did they do well? And, you know, that kind of stuff. So
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know why I keep. Namit said, what is your recommendation to a mid-career professional who's working in engineering and promoted to roles where they need to sell?
yeah. Okay, well, what I would say is, and this goes to the, you know, there are a couple more little points in my outline that I haven't gotten to. So this question is great. Put your own art, creativity, and personality into your sales process. Use your stories, ask your questions, develop, you know, what is it that sold you on the solution? And then know that you have, because you didn't, you know, you have a superpower in that you come from the engineering side and know the product or the solution or you know, whatever it is really, really well. And so that is obviously the superpower. Now developing that that muscle of selling is really important. So also it doesn't hurt to talk to other if you're an engineer and you're selling to other VPs of engineering, um, interview as many VPs of engineering as you can to see what is important to them. Start with one in your own company. You know, why does this software make your life better? And so hearing it from the actual customer and gleaming from them, what pain point is this solving for them? And then taking that, and now you have stories galore. You can say, yeah, I talked to this CTO, that CTO, this VP of engineering, and they were all bogged down, you know, with this problem. And what our software did was able to give them freed up this much cash flow or freed up this much time. And so that would, you know, that would be my recommendation, is to put your own personality, your own creativity into it. And also interview as many customers as you can to find out what's really the pain point that your problem or that your or the problem that your solution is solving.
Thank you. Thank you. And then one more thing, with engineers have a tendency to have a lot of information, is be careful you're not answering questions the prospect is not asking. So when people have a lot of in their head, that can really trip up a sales conversation. So stay on just exactly what Landon was saying. And then Landon, Zach wanted to pitch in here. He said he had something about building rapport with potential clients. So Zach.
Yeah, well, one thing I'll say about building rapport, I agree with everything Landon said. if you have a question or a couple of questions that you know about the customers or the client's industry that show that you would not know if you didn't really understand their workflow, their day-to-day life, those are fantastic for building rapport. And a couple of times I've had people say to me, my boss doesn't even know what you just asked me. Or I've had people say, my wife doesn't even know that, right? And that establishes a fantastic amount of rapport, because then they know that you're not just a salesman. You understand their industry and their workflow and their life, and you can possibly solve their problem. And that is, it almost doesn't matter where in the world it happens. If you know your customer's workflow and you can think up a question like that, it is really, really helpful.
So Zach, knowing that you are good at on your feet, can you give us an example?
Oh yeah, I used to sell, and I'll tell you how I actually discovered this. I used to sell tools that were used in mass vaccination, and they were used for getting more doses out of vaccines, very simply. So my customers, they were the head of vaccination programs in poor countries where they were trying to stretch their vaccines. And a lot of them had a problem that the companies were not shipping them the vaccines they ordered on time. But nobody knew that except for the people in that particular position. And I would always say to them, what percentage of your order did you get last year from such and such a company, right? And they would look at me shocked, because they didn't think that anybody knew that, right? Nobody was getting 100% of their order. They were all getting about 50 to 60% of their order. And it immediately established a fantastic rapport. And that was a decade or so ago. And since then, I've always worked with my clients to come up with 3 or so questions like that, that'll sort of really knock the socks off your client and show them that you understand their work better than anybody else. And that's a fantastic tool for establishing rapport.
Ah, love it. Love it. Thanks, Zach.
And not only
And
rapport,
we,
expertise.
yeah, we have several people here. Then if we want to hear, if you have a particular question to talk to our sales expert today, and then I'll keep a look on the chat. And then Landon, I know you have an outline, so go forth.
Okay. Well, that feeds right into I keep saying that, but the conversation is, I guess, fluid. But uh, my last point is twofold. It's having good questions and good stories. And so I'm really glad, Zach, that you brought that up, because I think of the word rapport and I'm thinking of, a good cozy friendship and a relationship. But the expertise is in a sales conversation is more important to be a consultant to them. One of the leading sales books of the decade probably is called The Challenger Sale. And what that talks about, I mean, they ranked and they looked at people that were like really hardworking salespeople and really good relationship builders. There's like the lone wolf that just goes and closes deals out all on their own. And then they have this salesperson that they call the challenger. And they found that the challenger sales were way higher than everybody else. And what the challenger salesperson is doing is it's more of a consultative approach, and they're challenging that buyer, that I keep saying CTO, CFO, whatever it is, founder, and challenging how they're thinking. So Zach's question was great in that it's like, oh, yeah, you understand my problem maybe better than I do. And one of the things about the challenger sale is it doesn't matter if you're a 25-year-old kid. Um, if you can say, I talk to CTOs, I probably talk to 3 CTOs every single day for the last year and a half. Or my company has helped 85 CTOs, and we have all these clients and all this data to be able to know what that pain point is, and they're telling us this is the solution. And so that's the, the challenger's sale is all about like having those really good questions. So that was a great point from Zach. For me, my company, we sell um, a solution and a platform that makes it easy to hire people around the world. And so, if you want to hire someone in Rwanda or Brazil or France, you don't necessarily need to set up a legal entity there. You can use our contracts that are built into our software, and you can hire and pay them anywhere. And so for me, it can be as simple as, how are you paying your workers? Are you doing bank to bank transfer, or are you, paying them under the table? You can even, somewhat get it in there, like get the dig. And I've seen that work. Like, so are you paying these workers like under the table? And a CFO hates that, right? All of a sudden they went from like, well, it's just the easiest way for us to just bank transfer money or Western Union. And then they hear the word under the table, which is true. And like, bing, instantly it's like, oh yeah, I need a better solution for this, right? I saw a guy that it's a review software. And I brought him in to partner with me because I had a client that had horrible reviews on their properties. It's an Airbnb kind of company. And they had all these rental properties, but really bad reviews. So this guy has a review management platform, and he just went through and read the reviews that they already knew about, but it was like nails on it was just like, oh man. And I remember thinking like, his name was Zane, and I was like, oh my gosh, Zane, stop it. You're gonna make them so mad and embarrassed as you're reading these reviews. And he's like, your reviews really suck, like this one and that one. And then I thought they were, just going to end the call and be so mad. But then he gets to like, we'll be able to help you clean this up and really overpower the top reviews if you just manage it this way. And here's, within a couple of weeks, you'll be at net positive, and then we're going to get you to the top. And it was like, sign us up. When can we get going? Like, so those really good questions, and sometimes even painful questions, have to be asked to get to the right answer. I tell clients, I'll ask clients a question like, so you've been recruiting a Java developer for 4 months, and you can't find someone under 6 figures in California, right? Like that makes a lot of sense. That would be really hard to do. So, is there a reason you're not open to remote, or hiring someone outside the country? No, not really. Okay, boom. Now we're in. I can help you find a Java developer in Mexico next week, and it's going to save you tens of thousands of dollars, and we'll make it easy to do that. So, again, knowing a little bit about their situation, asking those questions, and being able to pull it back helps a lot.
Yeah. And then with the characteristic of a good salespeople is we're expanding the prospects' possibilities, right? I see that Santosh has a question here. He said, can you talk more on cross-cultural sales calls, outbound cross-cultural sales calls? And I know he's from India that served the Middle East.
Okay. I I would love if you chatted a little bit more, as I'm going to answer your question the way I'm hearing it. And I'm actually interpreting it a little bit towards, the rapport piece. Like, I'm assuming if you're outbounding cross-culturally, and you're getting declined because of yeah, I may be just completely, wrong on my assumption of what this question is asking
Let
about.
me ask Santosh, can you be more clear on your question?
Yeah, Connie, thank you so much. So my question is regarding to understand, let's say for example, I'm based in India and I'm calling someone based in UK. There's always a difference in the culture, right? The way we call, the way we speak about our products or services. So wanted to understand what are some things that needs to be kept in mind when we're doing an outbound call being from a different culture.
So I have a guy on my team. I have two, and this is one of them I'll tell you about, because my point to conclude my outline is stories sell. So I'll tell you my story about Josh in a second and the story that I share to sell. My other guy on my team is Nimesh. He's in Noida in India. And his story is really powerful in that he felt like he, won the lottery by getting a job early in his career for American Express. He felt like he slipped in somehow and they hired him, and he worked so much on his accent, and he's like, it just so happened that it was fortunate for me that I love American media and culture and movies, and our whole team jokes that like Nimesh has seen, like, I don't see any movies. I'm not a big movie guy. Nimesh has seen all of them. He knows the sports of America. He knows the movies, so he's really embraced the culture, the media, and has developed a connection. And he has the idioms. The first time when we were working together and he was putting a proposal together, and he was, I was like, yeah, just put everything in that proposal. They're going to need everything we offer. And he was like, all right, full kitchen sink, here we go. And it was like, did you just say full kitchen sink? Like, my idioms. Like, wow, you've got it down. And so those kinds of things, again, there's no hack to that. Like, you have to learn the culture, you have to learn the sports, you have to learn the idioms if that's your goal, is to make a connection at a cultural, interpersonal level. And I would say my guy Nimesh has been an expert at that. And so that would be my advice is, you're kind of answering your own question. Work at it and learn, and again, develop that muscle. So hopefully that helps answer your question.
Thank you. Thank you. And then Zach said, hey, I've got something to share.
Hey,
So what I'd suggest, every culture has a business culture and sort of a trend. There are a couple of really good books on business culture, and they help you sort of understand the delta between your business culture and somebody else's, right? So for instance, when you're an Indian dealing with a British person, there are going to be quite a few gaps in terms of what you're comfortable with and what they're comfortable with. And if you study that and you're aware of it, like Landon was saying, sometimes there are people who don't necessarily want to talk about their family, right? When you're talking to some people, they'll talk about their family. Every Arab I've ever dealt with on a regular basis, I've actually had a meal with their family. I dealt with some guy in Australia for 20 years. I didn't know if he was married, had kids, was gay, straight. I knew nothing about him outside of the office. Okay. So that's the type of difference. The more you understand that, the better you're going to be at cross-cultural selling, because that's the type of thing, if you try to get a purchase order from a Nigerian without having a meal with them, not going to work, right? If you come to a guy in England and you offer to have dinner with him the first time you've met him, it probably isn't going to go over very well either. So that understanding is really helpful. And there are a couple of really, really good books on that. They're very big and dense because they're anthropology books. They're not really meant for laymen, but they're insanely helpful to study.
And what are those? Can you put them in chat?
I can. Give me a sec. I'll put them in chat.
Okay. Thank you
Kiss,
for
bow,
that.
hands is one, I think, right?
Sorry?
Kiss, bow, or shake hands, I think, is one I read at Thunderbird, a million
Yeah,
years ago.
that's sort of light. I mean, not to diss the person who wrote that. She wrote it 20, 25 years ago. It was pretty nice, but it's still a little bit, yeah, it's sort of popular stuff. I'll put a couple of ones that I like more in.
Okay.
Yes.
It was
And
it was 34 years ago, Terry Morrison. So we definitely don't want to diss her. She's a member of Global Chamber.
Not want to diss her at all. Sorry, I did not
yeah,
mean that.
well, I know you didn't want to. I just wanted to make sure that was an important book 34 years ago when it first came out in 1990, and it's still, she continues to make changes to it that improve it, and it's part of the puzzle. To your point, Zach, it's not the complete puzzle.
yeah. Oh, thank you for that, for sure. You know what? I'm looking that we're coming down to the wire here, and just to thank you, everybody. We will be sharing this and it goes up on YouTube. And Landon, really appreciate your what you have shared today, that where you were talking about just we've got to have empathy for that prospect. And so what are you taking away in the chat? Just share with us, what are you taking away? I'm number one taking away next steps, and we treat feedback like diamonds. I mean, seriously. So every little tidbit. So would love to hear from everybody on what you're taking away. And remember, Landon is the Chief Revenue Officer for Listo. And Landon, will you put your LinkedIn profile in chat along with your website on Listo? Because it's a perfect fit for global chamber businesses, just like you said, with all this different countries. And instead, that if the software, they have a software that does everything for you. So please check that out. He put that in chat here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, love to connect with any of you. And I just put my notes in, my outline from our conversation that we hit through. And so yeah, would love to connect with any of you. And oh, Zach's putting in some books. That's great.
yeah, okay. So let's grab onto those. And any last words of wisdom before we say adios? I'm gonna go ahead.
Yeah, I'll share a story to end, because I said, stories sell, and if you have good stories, I think that helps. But the story doesn't necessarily, it can be a metaphor as well. Those help with people a lot to relate to your product. But I share that when I was in college, since I told you I was working at Wells Fargo and I worked really hard to get this bonus, and I wanted to buy an iMac. The colleges these days are really smart about those big 27-inch iMacs that they put in the universities, and they get us all hooked at young ages. But I wanted one of those so bad, and they're $2,000 plus. So for a poor college kid, in 2010, that was going to take a lot for me to save up to buy that. Anyway, I get to the bookstore at the university, and when she went to scan it, it was about half of the actual price. So this gal scans it, it comes up as like $1,100 or something, and she looked at me, I looked at her like, is this for real? She deletes it and scans it again, same thing. She's looking all around the box for another barcode or something to try to scan. And then she goes, well, I guess you just got a great deal on an iMac. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is my lucky day. And I am carrying this iMac out of the bookstore, literally looking over my shoulder, worried that, the bookstore manager or somebody's going to be like, hey, we needed to scan it this way, or there was an error. So I ran. I'm like carrying this iMac. You guys have seen that, right? Like I'm running down the stairs, running across the parking lot, and I put it in my car, and I got home and plugged it in, and I just loved it. I loved it even more because of the value that I got from it. And I share that story because that's a little bit how I felt when I hired Josh on my team. He was from a former client of ours who was shifting his business, and he said, I've got to let go of Josh, but he's been supporting me on your account with Listo. You may want to hire him directly, and feel free to do that and interview him. And when he told me how much his monthly salary was, it felt a little bit like, well, wait a minute, like that's too good to be true. So that's it. And he's a great culture fit. He's amazing. He's on my sales team. He sets 30 plus appointment. Last month, he set 37 appointments for our sales team. He's phenomenal. And I feel just like I did when I got that iMac, like this is a steal. I should get in trouble for this, and we've given him a couple of good raises, and he loves being a part of the Listo family and the income that he's making. But anyway, I share that also from the global community. Hire someone from a different country, learn about them, learn about their country, develop that empathy. And it just might be that you feel the way I did, where life is just too great, and you have to pinch yourself with what you've got. for the value. So
Thank you. Thank you, Landon. And then September 12, Andrea Ballou is going to do a presentation on how to create a presentation that really focuses on that prospect and client. So we'll be posting that soon. So September 12th, same bat time, same bat channel as today. And thank you again for everybody. We really appreciate you. And we'll go from there. So thanks for everybody that contributed and asked questions. And again, Landon Listo. So we're going to promote your company.
thank you. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Bye bye, everybody.